To be honest with you, I do not know. Let me check.
We are live.
We're live. I'm at basically 7,000.
Trying to figure out that TikTok.
I forgot to add a cover to the live, so I had to do that real quick. Here we are. So why is there two C's in your last name? What's the reasoning behind that?
I don't know. I didn't give it to me.
Like, why is one C lowercase and one's capital?
It's the same thing with like Christian McCaffrey or, I think it's Scottish, Irish, Polish. I'm not 100%. I'm not real big into that like lineage stuff. And like, I couldn't tell you where my ancestors are from. I'm not into that kind of stuff, but it's always big M, little c, big C, and then everything else is lowercase.
So you're just interested about derbying and pet snakes, huh?
Well, I mean, I actually just went to Hamburg, Pennsylvania this past weekend and went to the largest East Coast reptile show. And man, is that fun. I love it, man. I tell you, if I had more money, I'd own 700 snakes. Dude, I was standing eye to eye with a gaboon viper. I'm able to like literally be inches away from albino rattlesnakes, spitting cobras, monocle cobras, ringneck cobras, like just the craziest stuff you've ever seen in your life. Like spiders that are as big as a dinner plate, like just out of this world stuff.
What?
And all of it's in this like one building, and it's like the first time someone that ever has watched like a county fair demolition derby goes to like a big national event, like that, they're like that blown away. If you've ever been to a pet store and then you go to one of these reptile shows, it's insane. Like each vet, like they have like how we have vendors, they have snake vendors and breeders and gecko vendors and breeders, and you can see a snake that has like brown on it, and then the same, like the next bin down, there's a snake that's solid white, and then the next bin down there, it's like solid white, but the head is brown, and then part of the body's brown, but the head's white. It is insane. Like they have figured out genetics on some of these snakes, and they are the coolest thing ever. And it goes anywhere from a $10 snake all the way up to a $5,000 snake.
That's worse than clutching the penguins.
I can't speak on clutching his penguins. I don't know what that's all about.
You just went on a 3-minute rant talking about reptiles. What makes you like a snake? Them things are hideous.
They give the best hugs of any pet, man.
You told me a story about how it tried to kill you.
Nah, when I was 5, I got my first snake. It ate fish. That was really weird. So we had to buy fish so that my snake could eat it. That was kind of weird. And then I owned a couple like ball pythons. I owned a Colombian red tail boa. I've owned some corn snakes, milk snakes, king snakes. And then most recently I got into the green tree python world, which is a whole different world of snake.
What is the difference?
Okay, well, so like there's boas and there's pythons. Boas, they give live birth, and like humans do, and then pythons give egg birth. But they're different. I mean, my snake, the one I currently have, the only one I actually currently own, they're only found on the island of Papua New Guinea, and they're arboreal, meaning that they live in trees. So I have a tree snake. You have to see it. It's wicked, man. It's got like 8 different colors on it. It's wild.
What does Kayla think of this?
Kayla hates it. Listen, the funniest thing in the world is if you came to my house and were here 20 times, you'd never see the snake. It's actually in our pantry because Kayla hates it so much that it's in our pantry. And our pantry is just a small storage unit plus a snake because I'm not allowed to have it out. I mean, it's under lock and key and everything like that because of how nasty of a snake it is.
You have children in this house.
They've held it. They've held Danny Green, which is going to make you laugh because that's the snake's name. Which Danny Green is my favorite North Carolina Tar Heel basketball player of all time. And the reason why I went with Carolina is because the lineage of the snake actually goes all the way back to the original Mr. and Mrs. Blue, which are the first 2 true blue snakes ever produced in captivity in the green tree python, Morelia viridis chondro family of snakes. So their lineage, if that snake would have the same lineage as its dam or its female, then I could produce babies that could be worth up to $5,000-$7,000 a piece.
What color is your snake then?
So it's a green tree python. So he's predominantly green. Down his entire spine, he has a solid, like this color blue, straight down his back with triangles going out from it all the way down the back of his body. That's from the Sorong Island of Papua New Guinea. Then he has a big giant cuffed nose that has white and green and yellow all the way through it. That's his Bayak Island that he has in him. And then on his belly, he's white with some yellow sprinkled in. And then all the way through his body, in between his scales, there's sprinkles of what looks like little pepper flakes, which is called melanistic. So that's where you really start to get these crazy things. Like if you look at your arm and you look at a freckle, that's just a concentration of melanin in the skin. So melanistic is just a concentration of melanin on a snake skin, which ends up coming out black. So it looks like he literally got pepper sprayed all over him. He's wicked. He's wicked.
I don't even know what to say. Like, I want to continue into this, but I don't know what to say. Why? Well, I guess why do you never bring your show to Deadman? Why is it never Buried Alive?
Well, snakes are cold-blooded, so he would die, or he would be hanging out by the fire the whole entire time. If I'm going to go down this road, I might as well go down this road.
Why not? We'll be here for a while. So
this snake is so temperamental that it is inside of a sealed cage with a couple of air ducts, but it's on a timer that controls the current temperature in there is 86 degrees. And at nighttime, it has to drop down 2 degrees because that's what they're used to. If you don't drop it down 2 degrees at nighttime, they get temperamental and they get really hard to handle. And that they can tell that 2 degrees of temperature is nighttime. So if you drop it down, say like during the daytime, I dropped it down 2 degrees and I went in to pick him up out of there, he would think it's nighttime because he's conditioned to know that night drop happens during the daytime based on how I have him. He's supposed to have 12 hours of daylight exactly and 12 hours of darkness. And he, at one point in time throughout the day, it must go up to 100% humidity in his cage and come down, or you're dealing with an absolute tyrant of an animal. So it's got water sprayers and everything in there that automatically go off, and it's pretty wild.
So what makes you want to have a pet that dangerous just hanging out in the pantry?
It's a show snake, honestly. It's like, it's like those guys that have those classic cars but never drive them. Like they take him to car shows and everything like that. He's 100% a showcase snake. When I have my bigger house, he will not be in a pantry. He'll be front and center in my snake room because I will have a snake room, 100%.
A snake? What? How many snakes are going to be in the snake room?
Uh, Upwards of 100, probably.
Weren't you telling me a story about when you were in college and your snake tried to choke you out once?
So I had a Colombian red tail that I used to hang out on the couch, and he would wrap around my neck, and he would sit like this, and literally because they're attracted to heat, right? And his head was a little bit smaller than my hand is. So if you look at your hand, how big of a snake that really is. And he was about 9 feet long, so a pretty healthy snake. And he was sitting on my neck watching, and I fell asleep on the couch with him around my neck. Well, he got cold and gave me a nice little neck massage, and I woke up like, okay, he's pretty tight, and I went to like put my hand in here to try to get there and realized that I could not get my hand between his body and my body. So I didn't really know what to do at that point in time because he had a good hold of me. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He just was trying to stay warm. And I was like, the only thing I could do is stick my head in the freezer. So I went in, I threw everything out of my freezer, stuck my head in the freezer and started touching his body off of the side of the freezer as fast as I could until he would jump. And then I could get my hand in between me and him so I could at least breathe. I don't recommend falling asleep with a 9-foot snake around your neck.
Why do you want to have 100 of them then?
It's cool. I mean, you can get in West Virginia, you can have venomous snakes in West Virginia. Like you can own a spitting cobra in West Virginia, which is ridiculous. Like ridiculous.
Why would you want
That's
to?
like some Jurassic Park stuff. Like people let them out and all of a sudden the world's taken over by oh my. People are gonna exit this conversation if we don't move on, my friend. You're blown away.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream, I guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, Deadman.
Yeah, pretty much. Now I understand all the weird stuff you do. It makes sense. A guy likes snakes, I guess. It's a weird thing. Oh, great. Well, that took a turn I wasn't expecting. Okay, so TJ, tell us, how'd you get into derbying?
Well, my grandfather, my pop was the first one to run, and he ran for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden he brought 3 cars home one day to my Uncle Mel, my Uncle Robin, and my mother, and all 3 of them ran far before I came along, and then as I started growing up, 5, 7, 10 years old, starting being in the pits, I watched my uncle and both my uncles run until one of them retired. Then it got down to just my one uncle who would run like once or twice here locally. This is all back, right here in the old Cumberland Raceway. Watching 120 car, heat and feature derbies with 60, 70 round backs. We had no idea what they were back then. Rory Droll, John Pittman, Tracy Abbott, some of the local guys, really coming up through the ranks for all that time. Just guys you never probably even have ever heard of. Every local track has those guys that wish they would have been around when we're around now. Like that could have been something incredibly special, but will only ever find their place in maybe one day of like a national demolition derby, like Hall of Fame or something, like maybe we'll be able to recognize those people. And I think that needs to happen. We need to recognize who built our sport up and, from promoters to fans to now social media personalities and things like that. I mean, I think we need to really promoters, announcers, everything who got us here. I think we're going to recognize those people one day and it's going to be great. But so anyway, I watched the first time I ever swung a sledgehammer, I was doing our terrible version of sedagoning a roundback station wagon. That was pretty cool. And flash forward to my brother, Emery, who had a car name at first it was called Checkmate. Believe me, the first couple of times he ran, there wasn't much chess being played because we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, I think the first year The green flag dropped, and he went to put it in reverse. It shut off, and he never moved. Then the very next year, because we had to wait a whole year again, very next year, same thing happened. We just had no idea what we were doing. I mean, it was like booger eater central over there, man. And a lot of people probably say, it's still that way over there at the McCullough house. But anyway, we moved on to where he started getting his name for hitting hard. He won his first Derby in 1998, right in the middle of the Attitude Era, driving the Stone Cold Austin 316 car. Oh, that was wild. Had a big rattlesnake on the hood, Austin 316 down the side. Don't trust anybody on the rear deck lid. And he ran an 80s Chevy Malibu station wagon and beat, And just to tell you how ridiculous it was, I mean, he beat Mopars, Impalas, like full like 74 Impalas, but it was stock stuff. But that little engine just kept running and running and running. And every time it would shut off, run. Because I mean, like, we didn't have headers back then. So it was just, you see that dust fly from underneath the car and boom, there he goes. So he ended up winning. He actually got rolled over by an Impala in the heat and got fans' choice and went to the feature via fans' choice and won his first Derby in 98. He kept looking at me over those couple of years and said, hey, when are you going to stop painting my cars and start derbying here? Turned 16 in 1 month was when we were allowed to get our license back in the day. I don't know if it's still the same way or not, but 16, 1 month and 1 day after I got my license, I ran my first demolition derby in a car called the Nemesis, which means the enemy. I was a huge Resident Evil guy back then, man. So it was the Nemesis. And I told just about every single person on the planet that I was going to go out there and I was going to hit somebody as hard as I could. I was going to be this Billy Badass and go have a good old time. And they dropped the green flag and I went all the way across the track, one end of Cumberland to the other. I mean, I was flying. I took the whole trunk off this guy's car in one shot. And that was my last hit. My first hit I ever took in a derby was from a Chevy Roundback station wagon from Billy Van Meter in the Hellraiser car, old cream-colored Roundback wagon. And I sat there and I got labeled the one-hit wonder, and that was my nickname for a little while because of that. Started going up to the ranks, starting to figure it out, ran some compacts, started getting pretty good at the compact side of stuff and really cut my teeth on the compact side of things and started getting a little bit of respect with some people. But we were always that crew that just hit everything as hard as we possibly could hit and junked ourselves before we were ever in competition for the money. And we thought it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, we were right foot only back in the day. I mean, I blew the front end off of so many cars driving wide open for 5-6 minutes and then just watching people drive away, with the check. And it was just, then it was the age of the Imperials came along real heavy in Cumberland. And once I got behind the wheel of an Imperial, it was, you got to run because I'm going to kill you. And I was wide open in them Imperials because I'm running heavy cars against some of like the weakest Y-frame Mopars, and I'm hitting them wide open, like as hard as I possibly can. I put a guy in ICU for a couple weeks down here, and the very next year they banned Imperials from down here. Then turn around and I found a couple guys that were kicking my butt every time we went out there. It was like no matter what I did to the car, there's something going on with them cars, right? This is before we knew what cheating was all about. And one day he put his hand across the hump of his Roundback wagon and said, "Look here." And I was like, "No way. That is not possible. Is that really going on?" So my buddies who were all against them wanted me to be against them. And I'm like, man, I really want to be something in the Derby world. And these guys are where it's at. They know, they get it. They understand it. So I started become good friends with those guys kind of behind the scenes, not telling my local guys that I was doing it, kind of playing both sides a little bit there. And that was the first time somebody ever let me in their garage and said, "Hey, I'll show you everything I know. I'll show you how to cheat a car. I'll show you how to drive one." And I spent hours and hours and hours in I'm not going to say the name of the people, but in these garages, plating stuff, blending stuff with Bondo and all this crazy stuff. I mean, the stuff we did in the mid 2000s was insane. And very early on before it really, I mean, maybe we were late, but around here, people weren't doing it. So then all of a sudden I started showing up with the same stuff done to my cars, and people were like, oh my gosh, that guy built a hard car. And then it was really fun to drive as hard as I possibly could. Finished 16 times. I finished second place before I finally got my first win. My first win and biggest win to that point was 2019 Bash for Cash, and started really understanding that money's gonna. That wasn't my first overall win. It was my first big car win. I tell you, I've had so many derbies locked up, guaranteed I'm gonna win, and just it was like God just was not letting it happen. And I told Kayla, I said, if I don't win, this is at the beginning of 2019. I said, if I don't win, I'm done this year. This is my last year. We moved into our house, and the first time I built a car solely out of my own garage was the first time I ever won a derby. Like that. And then the second time I went out that year, I won again. I ended up winning 3 times that year. It was a good year. So that's basically where it got started, and the rest is history. You know, flash forward a couple years later, we got an Iron City Nationals belt, won hardcore, and now we're moving on to bigger and better and more prestigious things.
So that was all at the same place you had Deadman at the first year, right?
That's where we cut our teeth, man. There in the Bedford County Speedway and Myersdale, all within 45 minutes of here.
Well.
Yeah, dude, back in the day, they used to deliver the American flag by paratroopers would jump off of that cliff and hang glide down and deliver the American flag just at the local county fair. It's wicked. It's wild, man.
I mean, it'd be pretty cool if it happened to Deadman, but
Well, maybe we'll do something cool like that. Big things coming, right?
So, speaking of Cumberland, whatever happened there?
So, long story short, there's a giant hippie fest there that goes on Memorial Day weekend. I never knew about it because I was always at Bash. So I never saw how big it was. And this past year I went there just for a little bit. And dude, it is like I've never seen people tent so close to each other camping. And you could not walk a foot without tripping over a tent stake for what looked like 2 miles. It is like ungodly big bluegrass festival down there. Now, the problem with that is that they gave them a lot of control and a lot of power to basically write their own contract. They're not allowed to have any music come in at all unless Del McCreary, Delfest, actually says it's okay that person can come in. So no matter how much money they stand to make, they have to ask Del first before they're able to do it. We had 3 inches of rain the first year. Which created a lot of ruts in the ground. But enough money was brought in that the following year, I don't know if you remember this or not, but the following year, magically, despite how bad we were for the area, the entire campground was now peat gravel, rolled, and perfect. Then flash forward to the next event that we had there. We had 2 inches of rain, remnants of a hurricane came through. It was like, oh my gosh, are we really going to do this again? And it was bad. It was really, really, really bad. I spent hours and hours and hours cleaning up that track. And he was like, it's a good thing that, this didn't happen, before Delfest because you wouldn't be back. And I'm like, oh my, that's not good. And then we started talking. We had one more event there. And that was when it rained once again. And everybody, our awesome Derby fans who sometimes tend to forget how hard we work to give you guys the thing, decided that they were going to get drunk and drag race golf carts and mud bog golf carts. And I basically had a 15-foot wide by about 1.5 foot deep mud pit in the center of the right where everybody stands to watch the Bluegrass Festival. And they were very, very, very upset. Now I went back and I fixed it all. I fixed all of it. But we were putting cars through fences. All of it was fixed, but they just at one point just said, you know what, like we got to cut ties with it. Or you have to pay us this. And that money that they were talking about was so ridiculously outrageous. There's not a promoter in the country that would have bid on it. So we decided to move. Now it's a good thing because when we moved, We realized that show number one, we actually turned people away at the gate that came back to us and said, not turn people away. They came back to us and said, I'm really sorry, but can I have my money back? There's nowhere to sit. And we were like, okay, so we're already at full capacity. And that was Buried Alive 1. We had 212 cars. So Buried Alive 2 was like packed to the brim. And we were just running out of room there anyway. I don't think Deadman could be what Deadman is right now if we would have stayed there. I think that its max down there is about 200 cars.
So looking forward for Deadman, like, is for the years to come, is it going to stay down there at Dunbar, or is you guys going to have a venue change, or?
So consistency is very important, right? I mean, it's hard to continue to change over and over and over. We're going to continue to change until we find exactly what's best for our fans. If New York comes calling and says, hey, we got to have Deadman here, and this is what's going to happen, because if you come here, this is what we're going to offer you. You know, here's this amazing venue with 300 campsites. It's an untapped market. Come see what we got to offer. I'm going to entertain that. If a bigger venue, indoor venue comes, if it's the right time, it's the right place, and it's the right move, we're going to make the move. Fayette's been amazing to us. They're great people to work with. It's a great facility. It's iconic because you have the big grandstands on both sides. The track's pretty good. We've learned how to fix the track now. I think that we showed that this past Derby with how we were able to take it from a foot of water laying on it to actually having a good track that held up. I don't recall many people getting stuck and having the track beat them. I hate that. It's one of my biggest things I hate as a promoter. I never want to see somebody get bit by the track. I know one of the Allens got stuck in the center of the track at one point in time, and actually required when Dustin hit him to kind of unlock him. I hate those moments, man. I hate those moments where somebody gets stuck in the track. But at Fayette, I've seen it happen 1,000 times in one show. And if it only happened once or twice, you just hope it doesn't affect the money. You know what I mean? This one it did, but you know, you just kind of hope that it doesn't.
So when you're writing the contracts for one of your shows, do you like schedule it in for it to rain? Is that part of the contract?
Absolutely. I won't have a show unless they can guarantee me it's going to rain. We look at the Farmer's Almanac and we're like, oh, it's not supposed to rain that weekend, so that one's out. You know what I mean? It's crazy. I thought we had avoided it, and we kind of passed that bad luck rain off to Frankie Guy in Hardcore because he had some. That man has some rain at some of his shows. And man, it just stresses so much. But I'll be honest with you, rain doesn't affect us at all anymore. We're so used to it now. When it starts raining, we're like, bring it on. Let's do this. Let's go.
Another day at Deadman.
Yeah, it's like not until it rains does Deadman really start. You know, I get on the mic every time it starts raining. I'm like, it wouldn't be Deadman without rain. People call me the Rain Man. That's rough, man.
Deadman wouldn't be Deadman if it's 3 a.m. and you're getting the car ready for the feature and you're soaked, you know.
100%. And what's crazy though is with everything comes a new problem, because the one time we had a show, I believe it was No Mercy, the first 2 days were extremely dry and it was hot and the sun was baking down the dirt. Then you can't see anything because of the dust. So now we're searching for water. It's like what do you it's like, oh my god, I can't win. It's wild.
We were the first heat that night, and it was dusty as you could barely drive out there. And then by the time we run round 3, it's a mud bog again.
Because it finally started to rain. Oh my.
You think Deadman's ever going to find that mix of just like the right amount of rain and just like maybe a little bit dry, or what do you think?
Let me tell you right now, if Deadman ever gets an indoor venue, I guarantee the first time we have an indoor venue, the sprinklers are going to go off and rain inside of that place. I know it will. I guarantee it.
Speaking of your guys' venues, a few people in the comments were asking about, do you guys ever see yourself going back up there to Jay County?
You know, we had a great time at Jay County. Jay County's a tough place. It's kind of out on its own. I haven't seen many people be very, very, very successful out there. I'm not saying that there haven't, because obviously there were derbies there for years and years and years. We took a chance going out there. We took a big loss going out there. We gained a lot of respect from a lot of drivers out there. And we actually have a lot of fans that come all the way out there. Shout out to you guys that come from Jay County that saw us out there for the first time and now travel those 6-7 hours to come see us. Sean Reese in the comments out there, he's one of them. But we were able to audition for a couple people to come east. I'm not sure what the future holds, but like I just said, if the market's right and Deadman's right for that market, we could be anywhere. You know, we're obviously going to be respectful of other shows. Like I wouldn't set up in the parking lot outside of Chillicothe, Ohio on Memorial Day weekend. Like, duh, you know, like there's a lot of shows that you want to stay away from because we want to give all of our drivers the best chance to be able to make, you know, some of the big marquee events. I think in the future, you're going to see that a certain amount of events are going to take a little bit more prestige than others. I think that, I think you can kind of already see, like I was talking to somebody today about like, what's the WrestleMania of Demolition Derby right now? Because WrestleMania is the biggest event in the year for wrestling. And then what's the Royal Rumble? What's Money in the Bank? You know, what's SummerSlam? You know, and we were just kind of going back and forth with that. And I think it's important to think of yourself in that. Do you want to be, you know, a Monday Night Raw, or do you want to be a pay-per-view? Like, do you want to be a major, or do you just want to be another, you know, round of golf on the tour, you know? And we're hoping to always be considered one of the major events, you know, through the year. There's must-see events and there's must-be-at events. So, like I said, man, I don't know if we'll ever get back out that way, but we sure do appreciate everybody that followed us back here.
So going back into what you just said a little bit, in order for there to be like the Monday Night Raws, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't really know any of the other wrestling names you just named, but for that to happen, wouldn't all the promoters have to be somewhat unified in a way?
Yeah, I mean, all of them. I don't know if you'll never get everybody right. I mean, there's a lot of egos in that room, right? If we set everybody down, there's a lot of egos in that room. I think there's going to be a willing group. I think there's going to be a willing group that says, "Hey, listen, we're going to do what's best for the sport. We're going to put our egos aside. We're gonna come together. We're going to do what everybody's talked about wanting." I mean, you see the posts, man. I mean, the posts are up left and right. Well, why can't we get this to happen? Why can't we get that to happen? Why can't we get this to happen? Well, let's talk about some of the reasons why they don't happen, Scotty. Like, they don't happen because of egos. There's very few people out there that can say, I'm willing to be Money in the Bank and not have to be WrestleMania. I'm willing to be the mid card and not have to be the main event. Like, how many promoters would say, like, if you went and asked a big name promoter and said, "Hey, you got one of the biggest shows in the country right now. I want you to merge with us, and we want to use aspects of your show to help bring Deadman along so that he can get to that level." How many promoters are going to do that? We don't want there's going to be clear separation for certain events. Certain events will always hold more prestige than others, whether it be a level of competition that maybe attracts somebody. You know, like I know that King of Ohio has that trophy. You know, that trophy that you went after last year, and it's right there, sitting right there, right?
Hey!
That's one of those prestigious things that people go after that are attractive, right? The competition, you know, whether you like, hate, don't understand the format, it's something different, right? So people go after that kind of stuff and they chase that, you know, that level of competition that you can challenge yourself 1v1v1. Maybe that appeals to some people out there and that holds a different level of prestige. Maybe it's going to a Deadman and saying, I'm going to challenge myself in a different kind of heat because you never know what that whack hole is going to do. You know, he's going to glue 2 minivans together next year and call it 2-man minivans, you know, like who knows what he's going to do, because that's what we're doing. You know, just different things like that. But I think the important thing to get back to there is the fact that it's going to take a group to finally come together, put all those egos aside and say, this is what's best for every fan and for every driver. We're going to try to move in that direction. And you're never going to get every fan and you're never going to get any driver. But hopefully we can get 85% of it right and then figure out the rest as we go. It's going to happen. It's happening. Like, I know that there's conversations going on. I know there's a lot of people that are already on board for trying to get something together. the problem is that there's this little group over here and there's this little group over here, and those two groups are separate. Like, if we could find a way to merge those two groups or thing, maybe we could really get something going. I mean, it's not going to be a one person thing. I know Dustin really beat that drum for a long period of time. Got a lot of resistance. I remember sitting at the summit last year and I said, guys, listen, like, just listen. Like, I always tell Dustin straight to his face, man, sometimes 10% of what you say, I want to beat your head off the wall, but you're over here beating your head off of the wall with 90% of the stuff that actually sounds really good. It sounds really nice. It sounds really good. I think the biggest thing is that people just want to know how. Like, I'm a dreamer, man. I dream big. I come up with big ideas and stuff like that.
Snakes. I wonder why.
Right. So like, I'm a big time dreamer. So people will ask me, okay, well, that's a great dream. Well, how do you get it done? Right. So it's like, I think that's what people want to hear is how. Like, don't tell me the big picture before you can explain to me how we're going to get there. But the biggest thing is that once that group comes together, and if I'm part of that group, man, I'll do everything that I can possibly do to make sure that we can get it done, for the drivers, for the fans, for the betterment of the sport, for the vendors, like, just end game people's lives, change people's lives. And I think that we can do that. And I know that if I was a part of doing that, I'd love to have the opportunity to lead that. I'd love to have the opportunity to be a part of it. I don't care if I'm, if I'm cleaning the toilets one day for this to happen, I'll do that if it's what's best for the Derby world. So we need a couple more people out there willing to clean toilets, and we need a couple other people out there willing to lead to get it done, I think.
So going back to that, you mentioned Dustin Woods a lot. Could there be a chance of you and Dustin Woods coming together to help move this in the right direction? Because what you guys both said is very similar to each other. Because I had him on I think it was actually a week ago today, last Tuesday. The message you guys are both trying to get across is it's very similar, but also somewhat different in the same way.
That's interesting. I'll be honest with you. I did not watch that. I've been pretty busy with other things that I got going on behind the scenes, and of course my sons are in karate. My son's in karate. I'm in karate. My daughter's in karate. That's right. I will sidekick you straight in the face. Just keep smiling.
What about Kayla? Is she in karate too?
She is not in karate.
Yeah. Come on, Kayla. You gotta kick.
That's what I said. She's got to get in there. But no, I did not get a chance to watch that or hear that. But I mean, I guess to that what I would respond is that's pretty cool. That there's some similarities without there being a. It's not like I went to him and said, "Hey, go say this," and now I'm saying what he wants me to say. Like that. That's cool that we're saying some similar things. I'd say that it's bigger than just Dustin. I've been hearing a lot of different stuff coming out of the woodwork that I wasn't expecting to hear. I've heard some comments that were made on here that kind of seem to fall in that. But to get back to your real question, would I ever work with Dustin? I'm not working against Dustin. Like I haven't, I'm not working against him. Right. I mean, like I'm not going out of my way to put a show right next to his and hurt his. I think the King of Ohio thing that he's got going on is absolutely awesome. I think that it's very prestigious, and I think that he has a chance to be that WrestleMania one day. I think that he's definitely tried to present that from day one. I've always been very, very upfront and honest about I like people that do different things. What's more different than the format? Whether you like it or don't like it, I'm about to experience it for the first time myself. I've watched it live. I've seen it ran in two different ways. I've seen it 1v1v1 with just 3 on the track, and I've seen it 1v1v1 with about, I think, 12 cars on the track. It was a lot of fun watching it that way. I believe that that's how it's going to go now. I'm really interested to see how that goes. It intrigues me to possibly be out there with like you and Steve Siupa. Like, how cool would that be? You know, like, let's see what we're about, man. Like, of course, me and Steve already talked and we're going to junk you, but, but it'd be just cool to go one-on-one just to kind of see what you got. Like everybody wants to beat the best, right?
Yeah.
So like I think that's, if you're going to do that, that's where you got to go sometimes. You got to go to that next level, and I think he does offer that. So I respect that. I've always had massive respect for anybody that's willing to beat their drum as loud as they possibly can while people are continuously up against it. And I think we can agree that that's what he's been doing for the last 3 years, right? I don't know that there's been anybody in the history of our sport that's faced as much criticism and resistance as he has had, and he keeps moving forward because he believes in something. So I'm not going to compare him to Colin Kaepernick, but one of the things that I always said, no, hold on, I want to explain. Colin Kaepernick had something that he was doing, and despite whether it's right, wrong, whatever your opinion is, he gave up his entire career to fight for that. He might be a complete idiot in your opinion, my opinion, whoever's opinion about it, but he gave up his entire football career to stand for what he believed in. So what I mean by that is this guy's coming forward and he's beating this drum and he's going down on this ship. He doesn't want us to sink. He's not going to let it sink. It's taking on water, but he's throwing that water off just as fast as anybody can throw it on him so that he can stay afloat. But he's looking to sail off into the sea, and really hit home with that. And I respect that. So
I agree. And then when it comes to Dustin, here's what the thing I like about Dustin the most is that I can tell that he's genuine. Granted, and here's why. So I've went to the past 2 King of Ohio's. And every time I've went to King of Ohio, show-wise, it was one of the most organized and well put together events I've ever been to. We had inspection times. The inspection was fair. It was thorough. I think a lot of people say this, that Dustin gets in his own way, but does he really get in his own way, or is he at the point where he's so passionate and he has his entire life invested in this? Because I've heard some of the numbers that he's lost, and it's. I can tell you right now, if it was me in that situation, we're packing up bags, boys. Figure this out without me. But the fact that he has continued to just push forward in this, no matter how many upsets and how many losses he takes, I don't know if it's stupid or heroic. I want to say heroic, and I do believe it is heroic.
I mean, wow. There's a lot of depth to that, Scotty. I was able to be in the inspection line, helping with Frankie Guy's Youth National Championship with the SMW class rules alongside of Casey Smith and Davey Chapman, Frankie Guy, and we were able to inspect out at the King, and I believe that was 2 years ago. And yeah, organization top notch. Professionalism, yeah, the victory lane, man. Whew. That's a home run, like stuff like that's a home run. And there's a lot of home runs going on out there. Are there things that he can work on? We all can. Is he probably working on them? Yeah, because if any of us know each other well enough, we know that promoters should be always looking at their weaknesses and trying to figure out how to increase their weaknesses and then excel at their strengths, and even make their strengths. If we can't fix a weakness, you got to make the strength even better to mask the weakness until you can figure out that weakness. So if there's a weakness out there, and I'm not calling one out, I'm other people do that, whatever, like whatever you see, don't see, or anything like that, it's probably being worked on. There's probably something that's being done to fix that. We do that all the time at Deadman. But to answer your question straight up, I will work with anybody as long as it's for the betterment of the sport, for finally getting this done to where everyone has a chance one day to fulfill their lifetime dream. I've always said that if Dustin and I could figure out a way to get on the same page, that there's not a whole lot that we couldn't accomplish. I don't know how far that bridge is apart. I don't know where he stands on that. I don't know where everybody else stands on that from hearing me say that. I can tell you I don't care. You know, if I was friends with Dustin, if I was friends with Steve Saipa, if I was friends with Frankie Guy, I was friends with Mark Elliott, I was friends with Scotty Drevenick Jr., that's my business, right? Just like I would never tell anybody in the thing right now, you know, that's listening, you know, you can't be friends with such and such. Like, go be you, go do you. But if these 10 people over here to the right were organizing Demolition Derby right now and it was best for the sport, I'd hop on board and I'd fly behind them and I'd say, what role do you need me in? Let's go. Let's take it there. So the answer is yeah. I'll work with anybody.
So going back to that point, the way I can compare this, that I've seen this and heard of this basically being involved, is that the main problem with it is that it's like a basketball team. Not everybody can be the Michael Jordan on the basketball team. Somebody has to be the Dennis Rodman that only grabs the rebounds. Granted, is his role, is it the most flashy role? No. But Michael Jordan wouldn't have won all those championships without Dennis Rodman. Do you think that's the ability to, well, let me rephrase this. Do you think that having everybody figure out a way to set their egos aside in order to make this work is the main problem with this?
It's one of the most glaring problems that we have in our sport. Very few people can set aside personal feelings. I think a lot of what comes out into it, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, things about, and I feel like and I have no problem with spending all this time on it, but I feel like we're doing a lot of talking about it. So we'll just we'll talk about it. Is just that, is it for him or is it for the sport? And is that a fair question that people have asked in the past? I've had conversations with him. I've said a lot of people are asking that question. Is it to make King of Ohio the best thing, or is it to make Derby it? And I've never got the answer. I'm looking to make myself famous. I'm looking to be this. I'm looking to get rich. I'm looking at this. What I've always said, what he has always said to me is, if it's good for the sport, I want it. I don't know that everybody's heard that from him, and maybe he needs to get on here or on somewhere and say that. Actions speak louder than words sometimes, but maybe words and actions together would go a long way to making people understand that. I don't believe that he's a cancer. I don't believe that he's trying to kill the sport. I think that he's got an idea. He's going with it. And I think that I said it at the SMWS Expo last year. Everybody's just yelling at him. And at this point in time, Dustin and I weren't really on great terms. And I didn't stand up, and I basically theoretically stood up and said, listen, we have to at least listen. There's a lot of good in there that he's saying. There's a lot of stuff that we all want in there that he's saying, but we're not listening. We're just looking at him, and we're just wanting to fight, and we're wanting to yell, and we're wanting to scream. If we can just listen and hear, maybe there's some stuff in there that we can get more information on. And like, if you don't like something he says, we'll go say, hey, you know, what do you mean by that? He'll tell you. He's tried to have the conversation with a lot of people that are like, that don't want it. He tried to have a conversation with me. I didn't want to talk to him about it. I didn't think that I was ready to have the conversation with him about it. I can tell you that conversations have happened, have occurred. More conversations have happened, have occurred. We've had a lot of conversations about what Deadman's going, where he's going, what we could do together. We've had those conversations. You know, are there bridges that still need to be built? 100%. Are there things that we need to work on? Yeah. But it's hard for me to sit here as a human being, as a Christian, and say, I got it all right, because I ain't got it all right. There's things that I've got that are flawed that I got to figure out. There's people out there in this sport that hate me for some reason. You know, listen, I can come off the wrong way. I've been taken the wrong way. Like, I'd ask those people to give me a chance. If you have a problem with me, talk to me. Let's talk about why you have a problem. Let's try to figure that out. Is it a real problem? Did I really do something wrong? If I did, I'm sorry. Let me fix it. Or maybe there's just a misunderstanding of something I said or something I said. I've had people get mad at me for not giving them the time at a show when I'm like running over to help get some lady that just passed out in the grandstands. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't have time to stop right now and talk. Like, but I've had people get mad at me for that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, man, listen, like, please don't, don't take me that way. Oh, you don't even know my name. I'm like, well, dude, listen, I've got, 10,000 followers here. I get 10,000 messages a week. I talk to 10,000 people, and half of them I don't know their names. Until you come up to me and say, hi, my name's Scotty, shake my hand, look me in the eyes. I drive the Iceman car, the 283, blah, blah, blah. We have a conversation. I probably don't know the name, and I'm not proud of it, but I struggle with that kind of stuff. So I think more conversations need to happen, I guess.
So you brought up a very interesting point, which to one of the questions I wanted to ask. So when it comes to promoting derbies and when it comes to putting on shows, in which basically being a promoter that puts on a very big shows, Buried Alive, big show, No Mercy, obviously a big show too. What kind of problems do you what are some of your biggest problems that you run into when it comes to promoting these big events?
Whew. The biggest problem that you deal with those, listen, anything that's big has a lot of risk. There's a lot of money tied up in big shows like that. Sometimes it's easier to run a 1-day show with 100 cars. I could do that with my eyes closed. These 3-day shows, these 2-day shows, they're big, they're tough. I respect anybody that's willing to even put their foot down and say, I'm doing one. To even have the idea that they're doing one, I respect it. To be able to execute one is, wow. It is, Scotty, when I say it's a lot, I wish that I could have like one of those filming crews follow me for the month ahead and the 2 weeks after a show. And to see everything that goes into that, man, it's wow. The hardest thing for me, outside of keeping my voice for 3 days, the hardest thing for me, honestly, is just staying me for 3 days and staying calm. In my past, in my life, I was a hothead. I mean, boy, man, you could just say anything to me and I was ready to go. I've had to learn patience beyond a new level. The hardest thing is for somebody to blast you online for something that's not true. I said that I have 9,100 followers right now just on my personal page, and Deadman has over 12,000 or whatever. If Scotty gets on there and says Deadman screwed me, and you have 1,000 followers, that's 1,000 people that can see that. If I get on and comment on it, now I just gave you a whole new audience that's 50,000 times bigger than that. Here's the problem. I want to get on there because you're wrong. You're lying. You're not telling the truth. You plated your frame is why you got loaded, not because your fix-it plate was 4 1/8 inch and we made you cut it. You wanted to go home because that's ridiculous. Those stories happen all the time. Can we agree upon that? Drivers tend to... There's one thing that I can say in any of these comments that I've ever seen. I've never seen the driver say, yeah, we're out of control too.
Oh, I'll admit it. I love derby drivers to death 10% of the time. 90% of the time, I love them, but I hate them. So to stand in and feel people yelling at you for stuff you know you didn't do, or dude, listen, straight up, Jeffy from Jeffy's Fab Farm came up to me and told me dead straight to my face in the middle of my track, show number 1. He said, dude, when you first told me this idea, I thought you were nuts. I thought there's no possible way that you could ever deliver. And he looked me dead in the eyes and said, man, I was wrong and you delivered. One of the greatest moments I've ever had with a friend or anything like that. And I swear to you, a driver grabs me a hold of the neck, shakes my neck, and I'm thinking, what's this dude doing the thing? And looks me in the eyes and says, you are the biggest piece of promoter I've ever seen in my life. And Jeffy looked at me like, and I looked at him like, okay, I'm waiting for like, what's going on here? And he said, how could a person come from all the way from this distance and you not give them a Reaper award? I'm like, because the guy that got the Reaper award bent you over one knee and spanked you for 10 minutes. That's why. But that moment, that amazing moment that I had was completely ruined
Mark Elliott and I stood in the center of my track. Great night. We're reflecting on things. I just got done shaking Steven Sickles' hand, and there's a picture. There's a really cool picture of Steven Sickles pulling me in, and he says to me, because at that point in time I was really interested in chasing points, and he had just won the championship. He had just received the money. He just received this thing. He pulls me in, and he says, "Next year, that's yours." Okay, great moment between me and a great friend, someone I respect in the sport. For him to look at me and say, "I just got done chasing with you. I just went to war against you for 20 some weeks. Next year's yours, buddy. It's your time." I'm like, okay, I'm pumped. I'm saying, I turn around and there's a drunk operator. Like, first off, a drunk person driving a skid steer. Okay. Gets out and staggers over to me. "I can't believe you don't thank the people that make this derby happen." And I'm like, "What's going on?" And Mark Elliott's looking at this dude like, "What's going on here?" And this dude gets in my face and starts yelling at me. And I took a step forward because Kayla always tells me that I get 1 minute of old TJ per show. And I was about to give it to him. And I said some choice things to that guy, basically telling him to leave. And Mark turns around, looks him dead in the eyes, and goes, "I think it's time for you to go. Like, you need to leave now." So the hardest thing, man, is to try as hard as you can, pour your entire heart and soul into something, and never be anywhere near good enough for everybody. That's the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing. I'll be straight honest with you. I have set up at nights going, I should go back to school and be like, I don't know, something else. I should go back to school and become a massage therapist. Like, no, like, oh, the massage therapist, they don't actually get to like work on the hot chicks. It's always like old fat dudes and stuff. Yeah, that's not going to be it.
Well, there goes that career.
Yeah, there goes that one. You know, maybe I should go back and be a mechanic. Oh yeah, but it's not really fun to work on everybody else's cars. It's only fun to work on your cars. I have literally set up nights trying to figure out how in the heck can I get out of being a promoter. There was one night, and it was at Portland, where something very personal happened. Chrissy Germain there, she was there for that. Something very, very special happened to me that night, and I knew that there was no way in this world I could ever leave Demolition Derby. And I'll share that story one day when the time's right. But it was a very personal thing that happened, and it was funny because it had just happened after I just got ripped apart, and I was right. I was 100% right. Video confirmed I was right, but I just got done being belittled for an hour, cursed at, yelled at, and I was right. And I walked away with my head high knowing that I was right, but I collapsed to the ground, just done. I wanted to quit Derby, and then something really special happened in that moment. And when that happened, I knew I was going to be doing this for the rest of my life, and I knew God had my back, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to be stopped. So that's why I'm still here. But there's been nights where if it wasn't for other people grabbing a hold of the back of my shirt, I'd be off the cliff, gone, I'd be done. So the hardest part, 100% to answer that question in 15 minutes, I'm sorry, but the hardest part is the people. The hardest part is the people, because we like to rip each other apart, but we're trying as hard as we can for you guys. I swear to God, we are.
So going off of that, do you think that a lot of people truly do love and enjoy your shows, but do you think that they don't come out about it as much as they should? Which obviously the people that have a negative time, they want to get they're angry, they're frustrated for whatever reason it may be. Do you think the anger and adrenaline drives that hatred faster than you could ever drive basically kindness or uplifting words from like the thousands of other drivers that come to the show?
I want to be very clear and very thankful to the people that I call the Army of the Dead, our drivers and our fans that are absolutely amazing. There's other promoters that are out there that also share that load with me. I receive so many gosh, I wish I could repost them, and I wish that I could, of all the amazing things people say to me. But don't we have this complex as human beings that we hang on that one thing? Like if I said to a girl, "Man, your hair's perfect. Man, you got the most beautiful eyes. Your stomach's flat. You got great legs. But your teeth are kind of like, they're okay." What's that girl hearing? Did she hear all the compliments that I gave her? No. She's like, she's looking at, her teeth constantly. And now we gave her a complex. I think we do that as Demolition Derby promoters. I think we tend to hear the negative much louder than the absolute standing ovation roar of approval sometimes, because we don't want anybody upset. At the end of the day, there's not a single time where I'm like, man, I hope somebody goes home really pissed off tonight. I want everybody to leave happy. But what you got to realize is that's not possible. Not everybody gets to be a part of the starting five. Not everybody gets to win. I could say I laugh so many times, and I just tell people you're crazy and I love you and you're amazing. Because I tell you, there's so many drivers that come across the track, shake my hand and say, thank you so much for a great time. I will be back. I had so much fun. And I'm thinking, bro, I just watched you get speed bagged for 10 minutes, like bouncing off of stuff like a pinball machine, and you had fun. And I'm like, that's really cool. Like, those are the drivers that are the sport. Those are the drivers that can walk away. We also have a select group of drivers that if they don't win, like if they finish second, are throwing a hissy fit like they're literally Kyle Busch in the Busch series. If I don't win every single race, we have that. That's a problem in our sport. You want to know what the problem is? There's not enough competition going on. Okay. There's not enough competition. You're not used to losing because you've been cherry picking little stupid derbies that you're going to win. You win because you come and you show up and you've already won just because of the roof sign. Like, let's go.
Are you related to Dustin Woods? Because that's the exact same thing he said.
Oh, God, don't say that. Yeah. You know what he is? He's the illegitimate stepson.
Can I change your name to
asking a
TJ
question
Woods on the live stream?
He said, TJ, what two drivers, if I could pick for the King show, would you want? What I want to go, is that who would I want to go 1v1v1 with? Is that the question?
Who is it, TJ?
Oh, man. Oh, wow. All right, so so here, okay, I want you to think about this. How many times in the sport does that happen? How many times in the sport does somebody say, I'm going after you and I'm going to get it done? I know personally that I tried it one time with Mike Klinger, and it did not work out well for me. I put all my cards out on the table. I told him where I was going to be. I told him where he could find me. It's a title shot. You want to beat the champ, you got to beat the champ. And I called him out, and he showed up, and he spanked me. I mean, he just spanked me. And I respect him. Man, I respect that man. The sport is worse because Mike Klinger's not still running Derby. I wish that man was still running 100%. Him, Tiffany, they were amazing for the sport. How many times do you see somebody like we all talk about them dream matches, right? I remember there was a time where we got to see the Bronze with Pete Hansen on the same track out at Bash. Like, oh, here we go. We got to see 2018 or 19, I believe, that knockdown, drag out, amazing heat between, I think it was Mark Siopa, Steve Siopa, and I believe 2 or 3 of the Bronze were in that same heat. Do you remember? Do you remember that heat?
I do remember this.
Steve got pulled in the heat, and it was like, no, don't pull him. I want to keep watching. I bet you Steve was like, don't pull me. I want to stay in the car. That dude was just insane. Not many people, when they're driving hard, there's not many people in this country that I respect more than someone like a Mike Klinger and a Steve Siopa. Andy Burris says he wants to be on a track with me. Yeah, we've had some good ones, haven't we, buddy? I've done some battle with Andy. Andy almost killed me one time on accident. I'll tell that story in a second. But to get back to what that is that would be like, what I love about the UFC is how arrogantly and openly they call each other out. I love when Brock Lesnar gets up on the microphone. I mean, this is a couple years back, obviously. Gets up on the microphone, points to the person in the stands and says, "You, I'm coming for you." And then the dude hops out of the stands, hops into the cage, and he's like, "Let's go." And people got to hold him back. Man, that's must-see TV. Imagine if, like, Steve Cioppa said that to Pete. Oh, my God. Like, dude, like, are you serious? Like, imagine if, you know, like, I thought it was kind of cool that you kind of got stuck in the same heat with Kinman, because it was like kind of like the battle of social media going on here, you know, like I thought that was cool. But like, it would have been so much cooler if you're like, I'm the real social media king, and he's like, I'm the social media king. Then you guys went back and forth on social media for, you know, 4 or 5 weeks, you know, 2 months back and forth. You could have really built that, right? Like, you really could have built that, and then all of a sudden, boom, you guys draw the same heat. Or what if you would have said, I want him in the same heat. Call up Dustin and be like, dude, you got to put us in the same heat. I don't know if he does that kind of stuff or would do that kind of stuff, but imagine if we could get 3 of the biggest names in the sport. And I'm not stepping aside and saying, like, I'm going to answer my question, but imagine if we got, because I'm just a booger eater from Cumberland, Maryland, man. I'm a nobody in the sport, but like, imagine if 3 of the biggest names. Imagine if George St. Pierre, Brock Lesnar, Conor McGregor all said, let's step in the octagon together and find out who it really is. Let's go. People would go nuts. I call people out to do that kind of stuff. That'd be sweet. We got something coming that's coming. I know other people that have talked about doing stuff like that. I hope it's coming, man, because that would be just so sick. You got to call up and let them know you want to see it. Now, who would I call out? I got a little bit of a beef. With some Pittsburgh natives. You might know them. They have that Iron City crew.
Nick King, you're calling out Nick King? He doesn't even have a welder. How could you do that? That's cruel and unusual. What's wrong with you?
I just think I broke my chair. I'm not kidding. I think I broke my chair. I'm not kidding. Listen. I did. Listen. I was not expecting that, and I don't mean that. I'm not mocking you, Nick. I promise. But it was so funny. Anyway, listen. Nick King and them, they ended up getting into the feature out there in Hamilton, Ohio, and we didn't. So I don't want nothing to do with that smoke either, I guess.
We look silly down there.
We look like a bunch of booger eaters out there. While they got to go to the feature, we were out there watching them run. So I don't know if we want to pick that fight, buddy. No, you know, Steve bared me in the corner. I told Steve, I said, you know, I'm running with Pete tonight. It's gonna be me, Pete, and Relier, and you got your crew. I mean, Steve brought, you know, 3 friends with him. It was, you know, Mark Burrs, Joey Pernice, and himself, and Andy was in there as well. And I said, you know, it'd be really, really cool to get out of here, you know, 3v3, or if you guys got 4, we got 3. Let's get it down to 7 and see what we got. Well, with about 9 cars left, I purposely avoided hitting, I believe it was Joey Pernice. I let him go. I'm not starting this fight because I said we weren't starting this fight. I backed up, and boy, that beautiful black wagon with a big green skull on it came and parked me in the corner. I was pretty pissed. I straight up was pretty pissed. I got out of the car. There's one of the first times that I threw my helmet in my career. Kayla just looked at me, and my son, who's one of the biggest Steve Cioppa fans ever, was like, I want to go home. I ain't even watching Steve run. How could he do that to my dad? So I tried to like be a good dad. I tried to be like, you know, man, like, oh, he got me. Oh man, he got me. And I walked out on the track afterwards and I said, you got me tonight, but I will be coming next time. 100% will be coming. Steve and I will one time. We will have it. I want him at some point in time. It's a respect thing. I love Steve to death, but I'm going to get him back for sure. So I would say it would probably be Steve would be in there. I'd rather have Steve one-on-one. without a wild card because I know he's going to get scared and probably try to, call the other guy over like Scotty over here to help him.
Wait, what? Hold on.
I tell you, I got to go. Josh Braun stalled in the middle of the track at Bash for Cash 2 years ago. And I was able to capture a picture of me hitting the front of his wagon with my wagon. It's one of those really cool, iconic pictures for myself to say I got to do battle with the Brauns. And then I pulled forward one time, and Joey Braun hit me so hard it pushed the back of my wagon all the way past my rear tire. And I was like, okay, never mind. Like, I'm good.
Well, that was fun while it lasted.
But I want the best. I do. And I think one of the best and has the best equipment would be Pete. You've battled Pete. That's a different animal. Pete's a different animal. Pete can build. I feel that if Dustin does his job in the tech barn for my car and his car, I would love to see where I stand on that. So that would be cool. That would be my dream scenario, would be like a Pete and Steve kind of in there. And I would literally be going off like 1,000 to 1 in Vegas on that one, maybe even more. But I think it would be really cool to do that. That'd be pretty wild. So that's a great question, Ben.
Which, going back to King of Ohio, one of the most nerve-wracking and stressful things I have ever been through my entire life when it just came to a demolition derby was when I'm waiting for that heat to start and when they're doing the draws and you're going over there and it's like there's two great names go up and then you're just sitting there and I forget who it was the one heat, but it was two people that you knew that one was going to be a battle. And I just started walking back to the car because I was like, I have terrible luck. This is me. And then I ended up about 3 hours of derby and went by and I was the second to last heat pick. But the nerves built up there. It's like having to go run a regular derby, but the feeling you get before you make the hit, you gotta have that feeling for 3 hours.
Well, it's one thing for somebody to walk up to you in the middle of a bar and go, "Hey, you and me outside now." Okay, that's way different than saying, "Hey, at the end of the day, when the final bell rings at 3:45, 8 hours from now, we're gonna fight." That's different. That's really different. So I actually have a different story. I have two different stories on that one that I think that you might find interesting. The first one is I got to know Jeremy Heinen a little bit, and I watched Jeremy Heinen 2 years ago. He had his hand. I guess he had his setup that he did every time that they started announcing who was going to be in which heat. He would do the same thing, that little routine. He would have his stuff. He was sitting there. He's ready to hop in the car at any point in time. So all those drivers are standing around waiting for this, right? And I was kind of talking to him. And then all of a sudden it was the end of the heat and he's like, I got to get ready. So he was over there kind of being ready to be called. He wasn't called. And then he would just go, all right. And he would just kind of talk back and forth. We'd watch the heat and everything would go on. I watched him do this for what seemed like 6 hours, I think. And then he finally gets out there and, Dustin rules, state, if you get rolled, you're out. We don't help drivers. So he got rolled over really early, and all that waiting and all that time was thing. Now, the other story that I have for you is that we were watching on the pay-per-view, and the one camera kept showing the draw, and you were at the bottom of the screen standing with Steve. And I actually remember sending you a picture of who's this guy? Who's this guy? And I think I even said it to you. You might be standing next to the guy that you're about to draw. That was pretty. I was like, man, I tell you what, it's getting down to it. Both of them are still there. They're both standing there wondering what heat they're going to be in. What if they're going to be in the same heat? So yeah, that was cool. That's the anticipation, right? I mean, I've heard some people being like, I don't like it because then I got to stay by my car all day long. It's exhausting, blah, blah, blah. And then I've also heard other people go, man, that rush is just incredible. So yeah, there's different sides to that.
Which, going back to that, I remember it was me, Jason Kinman, and Steve. We were all standing around talking to each other. And out of nowhere, Jason looks up, looks at me and Steve and says, I guarantee you we all three of us draw each other in the same heat. And I said, well, I really hope that's not the case. because you guys are like the only two people I really know here for the feature. So let's hope that's not the case at all.
Right. If you don't mind, Mike asked, when drivers come to our shows and they lay it all out and it's action from start to finish, what makes my show different than others? It's the drivers that we get, man. The drivers do it all. I remember when I first came out, I said, this is what I expect. These are the expectations. And I gave a pretty hefty drivers meeting the first time in Cumberland. And I don't have to say much anymore. The drivers take care of it themselves. We have other heats that we allow to be just a little bit different than that because there's a lot more money on the line. But for the most part, the drivers take care of it themselves. And Mike, I wish I could take credit for that. But I just feel like I'm the place that they get to do it. And I just think we got a lot of really, really bad to the bone, amazing drivers out there that just want to derby, that just want to hit stuff and just get back to grassroots, just hitting stuff. And I think that's what makes us, I'm not saying different, but that's definitely what makes Deadman.
I agree with you. Real quick, though, before we go any further, the link to the the username to Crashing for Kids Cancer's PayPal should be on the description right above this live if you're watching on Facebook. If you're watching on TikTok, I don't believe I have it posted over there, so go over there, donate whatever you can there, because I think today was the burial for Benson Mott, the Crashing for Kids Cancer child throughout this summer. He passed not too long ago. We went to the viewing yesterday. It was truly a sad and heartbreaking thing, to say the least. So if you can, just go over there, donate whatever you got. Don't have to do much, just to show your support towards the family, because I don't know what anybody would do in that situation,
One of the hardest things a parent could ever go through. I have 3 amazing kids. I can't imagine. I can't even act like I could even imagine. That has got to be the worst thing ever. There's no amount of money that you can ever give that's gonna take care of pediatric cancer bills. But I can tell you what you can do is you can try to ease that pain for people. Maybe somewhere along the line they'll finally give us that cure. Maybe they'll find that thing to give us a couple more years with somebody, or maybe make it less painful. Maybe make it. I don't know what they're going to do, man. We got to find it. We got to figure it out. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I think that they already have it. I hate to sound like an absolute nut, but there's way more money in medicine than there is the cure. I'm a nut. I admit that I'm a nut.
You think?
I am, man. I'm sorry. I hate to say that. I know I'm not alone.
We spent the first 20 minits talking about snakes, TJ.
It was 12. I paid attention, but anyway, I mean that wholeheartedly. I just wish that we could do something more. But if there's anything that we can do, man, and maybe some money helps, maybe some kind words help. I know I personally got to experience Jamie St. Mary at our show. Yeah, man, that just hit me right there, because I just said goodnight to my son, and I just can't imagine not being able to do that again. But Jamie St. Mary was an amazing donator to the Crashing for Kids Cancer. We actually raffled off our banner at the show, and I was thinking, maybe if I can get $200 out of this, maybe we can get Chad closer to 15,000, raised. And I went over there hoping to God we could get $200, and then maybe somebody would donate another 100 or 20 or something like that. And then it went 200, 300, 500, 600. I'm like, oh my gosh, God, the Derby world's amazing. And all of a sudden it hit 1,000, and I got tears in my eyes. Then somebody got on the phone and was asking for another person. Hey, let's do this. Let's go 1,500. I could hear him talking. Let's do this. And I'm like, I cannot believe they're talking about donating $1,500 for a banner. But it's never about the banner. Jamie St. Mary didn't want that banner. Maybe he did. Maybe he thought it was cool. It wasn't about that. It's about something was laid on his heart to keep going. There was a number in his mind he was willing to go to. And we went all the way up to $2,700 for a banner. $2,700 was donated to Ryder and Chad Friend for Crashing for Kids Cancer. That in that moment, and I'm telling you, man, I bawled and wept like a baby inside, and I know I was crying on the outside too. I've never been so thankful for somebody allowing, because we got to be a part of that. I've donated some money in the past. I've been able to go to the pediatric cancer ward and write a check and take a picture with the pediatric cancer people and be able to do that. But it wasn't that big. And what Chad and Ryder are doing, and the fact that there's a kid leading that is so freaking cool, man. That is just, it doesn't get cooler than that. So I shout out to them, you guys. If you can donate, if you can spend some time, and right now is that big time where you see, if you're a sports fan, you're seeing the Jimmy V stuff all over the thing. You know, cancer is the word right now for everywhere. You're trying to get things done. Ryder's an amazing young man. Chad's an amazing person. I can assure you that every single dime that is donated is 100% going to finding a cure or to helping these families get through what they're going through. So don't be afraid to donate. They're the best people I've ever met. So
100%. It was hilarious. So we were out there. So this is, we'll say this. Why not? So when I was out there at Blizzard Bash this year, Ryder and Chad Friend went. And it's during, I think it was like Saturday morning. We're sitting there. Ryder's hanging around with me. You know, we're walking around. Ryder's like, I'm hungry. Let's go get a pretzel. Oh, all right, Ryder, let's go get a pretzel. So we're sitting there eating a pretzel. And I was like, Ryder, you like Blizzard Bash? His exact words were, Blizzard Bash is way better than Deadman.
I love you, Ryder. That's awesome. You're fired. No more. Hey, listen, man. One of the things I've never experienced in person is Blizzard Bash. It's something, I'll be honest with you, the biggest thing is I'm afraid to fly. My heart was broken when I got to see all those amazing friends that I have. I saw the Jermaines down there. I saw Kyle down there. I really wanted to be there for that. I wanted to experience it, right? But flying scares the living daylights out of me. So that's kind of held me back. Shut up, Scotty. I know you're going to go back to the snakes, but it scares the crap out of me. I have a hard time with it. I've done it 4 times, and it scared the crap out of me every time I did it. So I didn't get to go again this year, probably basically based on just me not doing it. But hey, listen, what Smash It has is awesome. What he's got going down there with Blizzard Bash, what he's got going at Bash for Cash, it's awesome. I'm not. I mean, you can say what you want, but they got it going. There's a reason why they still got 50, 600 cars out there, 300 people camping out there. I mean, for everybody that's complaining on the internet, there's 20 people in line to go out there every year to take their spot. So, I mean, they got it going. So I wouldn't mind seeing it. I wouldn't mind going out there. So, hey, Ryder, that's a cool opinion, but again, you're fired.
So this year I went out there with John and Jaron Rutherford.
That had to be interesting.
Whew, whew, the stories I could tell.
I love John.
No,
don't act like you got to tell any stories, because once John started telling one, it was a 19-hour story coming from John. We know John. We love John, but that is exactly how that went.
Which, like, even talking to Jaron for like 9 hours, I've never really met Jaron. I never really talked to Jaron. To be honest with you, I've never said 2 words to Jaron. But like after about the 8th hour, like Jaron, I could tell he was finally opening up, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life when it comes to Demolition Derby.
Right.
Which, if that's kind of why I'm going to try to run a few less shows this year and try to make it out there on a national team this year.
That's cool. Well, I mean, you got the name, you got people respect you in the sport. So where you go carries weight, right? I mean, and you know that. I mean, when you come to Deadman, people are interested that you're coming. So, there's some people out there that talk about, what weight do you carry as a driver, as a promoter, whatever it is. So when I talk, does it carry weight? I would like to think that it does. Like if I drop an opinion on the sport, I hope that it does carry more weight than just a nobody. Like I want that. I want that. Um, if even if it's wrong, okay, that's fine. I can accept that. But as drivers, I feel like I've always said I do not consider myself a top tier guy. Um, I think there's a bottom tier, there's a mid tier, and there's a top tier. I believe wholeheartedly that I can win any derby in the middle tier. I've always said that. I can look like an idiot or get lucky in the top tier, and I have before. Um, but I think in the middle tier is where I belong, and I'm okay with that. I think that that's a good to know where you're at, and maybe that's building. Maybe I don't build as good as other people. I feel like, listen, I wouldn't step on the track, and you wouldn't step on the track if you didn't believe you could beat every single person that you were going out there with. There's one thing that we all have as drivers in common is we think that we're the best. Like we think that we can hang. Like if you gave me this car, I couldn't be beat. We say that all the time, right? Yeah, you give me his car, I'd never get beat either. Blah blah blah. You know, but we say it all the time, right? So like I wouldn't. I feel like, you know, when presented with that opportunity to showcase that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I do belong maybe at the bottom of that box, right? When we talk about moving from box to box, maybe I'm this year's my year to move out of that mid-tier box and maybe be at the bottom of the top tier. I don't know. We're going to find out though, I can tell you that.
I think you never truly leave. I don't truly believe in the boxes and the where you say where you're at in the sport. I believe that when you truly do put 110% effort in, not which I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of times I get lazy. A lot of times it's 3 a.m. I'm like, this is dumb. But I believe if you truly put 110% in, that you will never fail. But the problem is how it's super, super difficult to basically be strong enough physically, mentally, and be prepared enough mentally and physically to put 110% in. Like this year at Buried Alive, I put about 90% in. I lacked in areas of preparation. I lacked in areas of pre-planning that caused me to.
But I'll say this: you may have only put 90% effort into that, but you put 100% effort into your brake pedal.
The guy gives me this sign and wonders why I'm not out there laying it down. What world do you live in where he takes your right foot away, buries it outside of your camper, and then wonders why you're not hitting the gas? Welcome to Deadman, ladies and gentlemen.
That's why. That's why. Oh God,
I don't know what you expected. I couldn't drive. I was like a guy with a stick, just poking it down there.
Oh man, that's funny. I think, with the Christy Germain painted it, so that's on her.
Dude,
I'd love to say it was her idea, but it was mine. But that's the kind of fun we like to have at Deadman. We like to poke fun at each other. We like to poke fun at ourselves. We do it all the time. It's great. We enjoy that kind of stuff. I respect your driving ability. I do. I think you do need to hit more. I think if I'm being honest with you, straight man to man, I think if you went out and absolutely laid people out for 2 or 3 shows and showed them that you could do it, you just choose not to, I think that would go a long way for your legend to continue to rise. I mean, let's face it, man, just straight up. I mean, the next generation of drivers, you could be at the very forefront of that. And you're here now. You're not driving the 4.6s and things like that. You're driving the big money shows. You're driving the big shows, the premier shows in the country, and you're there. I just think people want to see more. They want to respect you for being able to do both. And I think most of the people know that you can drive. Most of the people know that you can defend, People want to see if you can really throw that haymaker finisher. You know what I mean? And I think if you go and do that and maybe pick a couple shows that the car doesn't matter to you that much and go do it and put some people on their lids, man, you know, shift some frames and stuff like that. I think people would love to see that side of Scotty. You guys want to see that side of Scotty or what? Come on. Let's see it in the comments.
Oh, great. 150 people just heard that. Well, so speaking of that, this is kind of off topic, but this is one of the topics we wanted to cover. When it comes to a very popular topic when it comes to these live interviews is the inspections. Mm-hmm. What are some of the hardest parts that you deal with when it comes to your inspection crew?
First off, trying to figure out what the drivers want. I always say that the drivers will say, you'll get a group of drivers that come to you and they'll say, I want red shirts. And we're like, okay, we're going to make a red shirt for you. We'll go, we'll spend all this time developing this red shirt. We'll come out with this red shirt and they'll go, oh, not that shade of red. And I'm like, okay, well, what shade of red do you want? And they're like, well, actually, red was so last year. We really want a blue shirt.
It really was, though. I can't disagree with them.
So then we'll produce this blue shirt, and then they're like, not that shade of blue. And it is chasing your tail sometimes, trying to figure out what the majority wants and what's best. It's really hard because not everybody wants the same thing. And are you ready for the hard? You ready for the hard comment? Are you ready? Are you ready for the one that will slam the whole Derby world upside down? Can we admit as drivers, what we really want is whatever benefits us? Can we admit that? Like when we talk to a promoter, are we saying, oh, you should do this because people would love it? Or are we saying, if you do this, I'm going to destroy that rule and I'm going to ruin your show? That's what we're doing. Let's be honest. 90% of people that are calling to talk about rules, they're trying to manipulate their way into having an advantage. Nobody wants to go onto a track anymore with a fair. Nobody wants to run the IROCs. You're too young to understand what the IROC racing was back in the day. You don't know what it is?
Not at all.
They took the best champions from NASCAR, Formula One, all racing styles, and they put them all in these Pontiac. I believe they were a Trans Am kind of look. But every car was identical. Like identical. And like one day Earnhardt Jr. would be in a black car, and the next time they raced at Michigan, he'd be in a green car and thing. It was all completely random on what car they got, but it was equal. And you really found out who could wheel a car. Drivers don't want that. Builders don't want that. They want to find the rule that they can exploit, that they have an advantage. If we built 30 cars identical and showed up, we'd have a hard time filling those 30 spots with the top tier drivers in this country, in my opinion, because I don't think they want that. You'd have it all day from the lower tier and the middle tier because that's what they want. I'd say 85% of the drivers in this country don't care to have the advantage. They just want to prove that if they're on the same level that they could spank you. But the other 15%, they want the advantage. I've done it myself. I like to compete personally. I can't afford to get loaded at shows. Have I cheated at shows? Absolutely. 100%. What I do as a driver and what I do as an inspector and as a promoter is completely different. Listen, the level of respect that I have for your show, if you catch me with a plated frame at one of your shows, is because I do not respect you as a promoter or as you as an inspector. And if I didn't respect you as a promoter or as an inspector, and I came and ran that show with a plated frame, you're not finding it anyway. That's how drivers are. That's how builders are. 100%. You get it?
I do.
And you still show up with stupid stuff at our shows. You know I ain't gonna let you do.
Well, here's the thing. That nobody wants to agree. Here's the thing that nobody wants to address. Everybody wants to have the fair cars, but yes, we all want the advantage. The problem is when guys say, you know what, I want the advantage, I'm going to go get that advantage. Not a lot of people have that. Well, could this be bad? Could I maybe get loaded for this? maybe. Some people are willing to go to risk that extra mile to have that advantage when nobody else is.
Mm-hmm.
Which, can you blame them for that? I don't think you can penalize them for that because they have the same set of rules and the same opportunity as everybody else that has entered that show.
No, listen, I've always said, and this was a hard thing to try to teach some of my more inexperienced tech inspectors, like new people that have come along or people that haven't been doing it for multiple years and haven't ever done it at like the biggest level. And I think that we were a little kind of taken back about how fast we grew. We weren't expecting certain people to come to our shows, and we got them. And it, dude, listen, there's some drivers out there that will go, "You ain't ready to inspect my car." You know what I'm talking about. There's some people out there. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. We're doing our best job. Okay, we're putting our best foot forward, and we'll catch everything that we can. I always say the best inspectors in the world are the people that are looking for 100% of things that will only find 85, because let's face it, we're better than the inspectors 90% of the time. We've spent 6 months building this car so that you don't catch it, and now you've got 30 minutes to try to find everything that I did. So like, I don't feel that you'll ever find 100% of everything, but the best inspection team in the world is consisted of people that are knowledgeable and that are specifically looking for 100% of everything, knowing that they're not able to find it, but they're going to look for it. That's it. If you can, at the end of the day, if you can go home and say, I looked for every single thing that I could think of on that car. I looked in every area that I think that they would cheat on a car. I scoped it. I drilled it. I did what I could do. And I didn't just drill yours. I drilled everybody's. I didn't just drill yours here. I drilled everybody's there. I drilled every Camry here, and I drilled every W body here because it's different. I drilled every Ford here and every Cadillac here. I looked for the pin right there in the Cadillac because everybody does it. And I looked for, back here on this one, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're looking for everything, I think you're doing the best job you can. I don't have a perfect inspection crew. Nobody does. But what I'm saying is, I think the biggest problem right now that we have is inconsistency from show to show to show. If I just said these are the 10 guys that are inspecting these full-size cars all throughout the year at every show, even if you didn't like them, even if they were the worst 10 guys in the country, it would be consistent. They would be the same 10 guys every show. So then it's our job to find the best 10 to fit that job. If we could do that, my gosh, man, maybe we're on to something. Maybe we can get things. The other thing is, man, I'm going to tell you, should I stand up for this? Like, man, I feel like I need to stand up, talk. My chair's already broken. You owe me a chair. I literally broke my chair in half laughing at you. Hey, honey. Do you mind? Where was I? My wife's so beautiful. She struck me. So, anyway, I was talking about inspection. I was about to tell you something that was really important. What was it? Holy cow.
So a point a question that I was basically saw that I truly believe was a question that I want to ask every one of the promoters that come on. When it comes, do you think that there should be people in like these big show inspection lines inspecting these cars that have never built a car like that? Like, do you think you should have a guy that inspecting like kicker cars that has never built a kicker car?
I know where that question comes from. But to that person, nobody's ever built a car like that person builds a car. What I wanted to talk about, and you can remind me here in a minute, is what other sport does what we do. Remind me of that comment, and then I want to make a statement. Yes, if I wouldn't put them, you should never have a mower class where people that have never built a mower are inspecting the class. The answer to that's yes. Here's the deal. You guys have no idea what it's like to be on this side. You have no idea what it's like to be an inspector. It is the hardest thing I've ever done. Writing a set of rules is one of the hardest things you will ever do because you think that they'll be perfect. By the time you got them perfect, you send them out to 3 different people. They absolutely blow them apart. You bring them back and you're like, man, I got this now. Now we got a perfect set of rules. I've read through everything. There's no gray areas in this rules at all. So then you send them out to 3 different people and they're like, oh my gosh, these rules are crap. These rules are terrible. Like, dude, there's like 40 different gray areas in here. You send them out to and you could do that over and over and over again. And then when you finally put the rule set out, someone comes along with a kicker down to their freaking frame rail, and you're like, what is this? And they're like, well, your rule clearly states that I can have this. And you're like, no, it doesn't.
Done that?
No, it doesn't. And all of a sudden, your whole entire promotion company is basically up in complete shambles. Night 1, Thursday night, buried alive 1, everything you said, going to be consistent, and I wrote the rule, and I answered the question, and I approved it, and all of a sudden the guy's got kickers in his car. You know what I did that night? You know what I did that night, Scotty? Frankie guy came to me, and he said, TJ, you need to send those 2 guys home. And I said, why, Frankie? And he said, it's better to piss off 2 people than 50. I get that. So I had a decision to make. And what's the right decision here? 2 guys got me on a rule. I approved it. Then they used 3 other rules against what I approved and beat me. Now, yeah, did he purposely try to screw me over? Should I have punched him straight in the face and said, how could you do this to me? Yeah, probably. Was he wrong for doing it? I approved it. Was it good for our show? No. It was a chance to ruin our show. It was a chance to ruin Deadman, show 1, night 1. And I'm like, oh man, like this is tough. So I walked right up to him and his buddy who had the same thing done, and I said, here's the deal. I'm a man of my word. And by me sticking to my word, I'm going to break my word to everybody else and saying that this is going to be a fair show because you clearly have an advantage. You have kickers in your car. But I'm a man of my word. I told you you could do this, and then you basically took 3 rules that were black and white and then beat me. I'm not going to tell you to cut it. I'm going to ask you, will you cut it? Because everybody else here is legal. And he said, we'll talk about it. I've been told, I saw where he cut it. Did he cut it all the way through? I don't know. But that's on him. But I was a man of my word that night, and I said, man, this really sucks. He got me. Sometimes you have to eat that. And everybody else that came over to me, it's ridiculous that he has that to his car. Why does he have that? And I told him, and I said, you know what, man, I made a mistake. And I think night 1 of that show, I wanted to quit so bad. I cried that night. I did. I blew it. I messed up. Now, I had tech inspectors working for me the first time say, if you let that run at it, we're out of here. We argued. Night 1, first time ever working together. That's the kind of stuff that we deal with sometimes in our tech barn, and we don't know what to do. I can assure you that what we do now is what I wrote in my general rules. If at any point in time we deem it completely excessive and it's too much, we reserve to choose what's best for Deadman, and that's what we do now. Whether or not you think you got us here on anything like this, and some people are like, you can't do that. Well, then don't sign up for our show because we reserve the right to protect Deadman. So let me go back to where I wanted to stand up on my high horse. What other sport in the country does the consumer, the athlete, specifically stand up and absolutely look at you and say, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to tear you down so that I can succeed? What other sport does that? Does the NFL do that? Does any other sport have the people that we're paying, the people we're giving money to? Does any other sport have those people coming back to us trying to screw us over purposely? There's no other sport in the country that does it. That's what has to change. We have to be better for our drivers 100%. I'm saying that as Deadman crew. I'm saying that as every crew in the country has to be better for our drivers. But our drivers have to agree to be better for us too. There has to be some sort of stance that's taken somewhere in this country that you got to stop doing those 50 stupid items that make people absolutely hate inspecting your car, Scotty. You have to agree to stop doing them because you know we're not going to do them. You know all it is just to get us to look at these 50 things so that we don't have time to look at the other 30 things. Like, you know what you're doing, but we've got to find a way to get you to stop doing that so that we can just get back to finding the Sean Reese, you just said it. It's about respect. And some of the drivers don't respect us, and some of the promoters don't respect the drivers. That is a true fact. There are 100% drivers out there that don't respect you, and there are some promoters out there that don't respect the drivers. You know, Mark Elliott just said, wish in one hand. I understand, but this is what has to happen some point in time. We have to figure out a way to get it closer. Maybe it's a better set of rules that you don't have to do it. Maybe it's a, hey, I tell you what, just show up and run whatever the heck you want, and we won't talk. We won't even inspect the cars. There you go. Have fun. Everybody will complain that somebody's overbuilt. You watch. I'm underbuilt. You know, it's got to happen. I don't know how that happens, but we got to figure out how that happens. We have a legit issue there that our consumer wants to tear the people that are allowing them to get paid. They're trying to tear them completely apart. So the drivers have to, I want to be very clear when I say this, because I don't want the drivers to feel attacked. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, undoubtedly, the drivers have to be better for us. And undoubtedly, the promoters have to be better for the drivers. We have to inspect the car in front of us to the rules that we presented, not the car that has a specific number on the top, a specific name attached to it. You think that you get inspected differently, do you not?
I do.
You do. You want to know why you get inspected differently? Because you do stupid stuff that makes you deserve to get inspected differently. That's why. That's why. So you have a choice. You have a choice to say, I'm going to stop doing it, and I'm just going to say, hey, I'm just going to try to build as legal of a car as I can. I'm going to push these 5 things, and if he lets me have them, here we go. If you're not, I'll cut him. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. You can continue to do it, and I'll continue to tell you to cut it. That's perfectly fine. Okay? But don't complain if I make you to cut it. That's the only thing. And you know, it's one of those things. You know, somebody said it's a good idea. It's not a good idea. Whatever. That's fine. I just want to open the conversation. I don't have all the answers and I don't have all the right ideas. But maybe that starts a conversation that one of you people that are out there that maybe you're smarter than me, and it ain't hard to be smarter than me. Maybe you guys have the answer. Maybe you come up with it, and maybe I'm the one that starts to implement it. So if you got an idea, send it our way, man. Like, let's figure this out.
Which, going back to that, so last night when I had Frankie Guy on, he brought up a very interesting point when it comes to the perspectives view of everything. My job as a driver is to build the car to the best of my ability. But at the same time, when it comes to the job of the promoter, it's completely different from the job of the driver. Can you agree with that?
I never, ever, ever get upset for how you build a car. You just can't get upset for me standing my ground. That's all I'll ever say. I never have been mad at you for building a car the way you build a car. I've told you you're wasting your time. I've had arguments with you and said, hey, if you just stop doing these stupid things, man, you'd be in and out and you wouldn't have a cut list of 40 things. Can we be honest? There's some drivers out there that literally like to be able to take a picture of their car that's on a trailer and be like, oh, trailer queen. There's some weird people out there that like doing that.
I'm not one to take them pictures. I was just like looking at the long list, making, like I saw Christy Germain comment a little bit ago. She got a whole hand exercise when she was writing my cut list, I'm just trying to keep the people in shape, like not a lot of people get to do that much Grammarly exercise on a daily basis. So it's my job as a driver.
Oh man, leave it to you. Listen, she asked, Christy Major asked, a question for TJ. What other sport but demo tells the driver's athlete that you can't do that because I don't like it? I didn't say that. I said, I reserve the right to tell you that it's excessive. That there's a big difference in that. If I believe that it's excessive, I'm not going to call out specific. I can call out 10 specific things that have been done at our shows that we haven't allowed because it's excessive, but I'm not going to call out what those people did because the inspection process is private. If those people, if it was on Scotty's car and he had this and he would say, TJ, you can tell them right now, you're allowed to tell them this thing, I would tell you, but I'm not going to do that because it's thing. Okay, well that's a whole different thing. You're honestly, you're a freaking cancer for the sport, and people like you shouldn't be involved in the sport, to be honest with you. I'm tired of your crap anyway, and somebody needs to tell you it, so I'm going to tell you it. Anything involved in Demolition Derby, if you're involved in it, Christy Major, I will not be, because you are an absolute cancer, and somebody has to say it. So why don't you go find something else to do, because you suck. All right, what's up, buddy? There's keyboard warriors, and some people just need to be told to shut up, and that's one of them. They're absolutely harassing everybody in the sport, and they suck. What's up, buddy?
I agree. So how do you define that wiggle? Frankie Guy mentioned this yesterday, the zigzag to the wiggle. Like, how do you define the separation between the two?
That's tough. That's the hardest part, right? That's what we're all trying to figure out, right? You guys have to decide how much, the drivers have to decide how much you want us to wiggle, and we have to decide how much we're willing to wiggle. You know, like there has to be like a kind of parameter to say, I think that we're going to go this far, but not this far. Okay. And I think that, you know, there's got to be boundaries that are set. I think we just got to figure that out. You know what I mean? We just got to figure that out on where it's going to be. And I don't know who's going to figure that out. I hope that I'm part of it. I hope that I can help try to push it in that direction. But who knows? Maybe we'll get there. Maybe we won't.
I agree with that. So one of the questions that I've been asking everybody lately is, so could you ever see Demolition Derby turning into a sport like NASCAR, which the responses have been different? Don Santel and Frankie Guy have both agreed that they don't see it becoming like NASCAR. They could see it becoming more of like how dirt track is. Where do you think derbying could end up if we can truly come together as a sport and unify and get everybody to agree on something?
Like nothing that's ever been done before. That's what I would say. I think Derby is its own complete entity. I think it's its own complete thing. I just think I think that there's a lot that goes into what it could be. Do I think that it could be a legit sport? Well, if you don't think that it can, turn on ESPN and watch the World Cornhole League. But you don't think that Derby could be a sport? I think some of the challenges that we have are like if you really start to think about like the details of it. Okay. Real quick in the comments, I just want to comment real quick is I'm a driver too. So I see it from both sides, and I'm not playing a character right now. I'm giving you guys a lot of real me, but I'm also saying things that I just think just need to be said out there to just start a conversation. So some of those I have a firm stance on, and a lot of those are just to open up a conversation that I think that we just should open up and just be available to hear and listen and to kind of go from there. So now we talk about the ability to be a sport. Can it be a sport? Yeah, it can. You know what's really cool? If we were creating NASCAR right now, okay, you know what we already have? We already have drivers. We already have fans. We already have cars. We're already a sport. Like, it is already a sport. You understand that, right? It's already a sport. Like, what do you classify sport? Is there competition? There is. Do we have a problem with competition? We 100% do. We got to get the best against the best. Okay? And we can. But the platform 100% is already there. We've got people that make parts. At this point in time, if you've got a frame, you got a car. Like the only thing we're not making right now are bodies and frames, and maybe we ain't that far away from doing it. There are people that used to do it that maybe we could get on board one day, and maybe they'll remake them for us. Who knows? Who knows? But like, I just think that it is already legit. It is a sport. It's a sport right now. I mean, there's money being paid. The only thing that it's kind of like college football 5 years ago. We already have athletes, they're just not getting paid. We already have team owners, they're just not getting paid. We have crew chiefs, they're not getting paid. We have part manufacturers, they're not getting paid. Like we have engine builders, they're not getting paid. Like we already have that kind of stuff. I don't know where that goes, but there's a lot of pieces that are already together that I think that who knows, man.
So you think we have all the pieces for the puzzle, we just don't know how to put it together?
I think that there's a lot of pieces that need to be developed to finish the puzzle. I feel that we have the four corners of the puzzle and we have all the flat edges to the puzzle. The easy part of the puzzle is already there. The difficult part of the puzzle is the difficult conversations that have to happen to make it happen. And can you get past those difficult conversations? I think that there's a lot of people out there that egos are going to get in the way of it. Maybe mine, maybe yours, maybe who knows. Maybe there's 10 people in the chat that don't want it. I don't know. I don't know. What does it look like for my personal company? What does Deadman look like if this moves to ESPN? Are they really going to keep that? I can't even keep the name because they're going to call me unalive, and you can't even use man because it's a pronoun and it's offensive. Like,
dude,
what am I
I'm
going to
screwed
be?
then too.
What am I going to be called?
I gotta repick the name. I guess I gotta go back to Little Freebie too.
I'm going to be like unalive person derby. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't ring as good. Like, I mean, like, there's a lot of those goofy things, right? Like we talked about, like who has a position in that? Like, am I gone? Like, is everything that I built gone? I'd like to think not. I'd like to think that I have a plate at that table. Jeff, I'd like to think that Jeff Schumann from Jeffy's Fab Farm has a spot at that table. I'd like to think that Chrissy Germain from Canada, even though they're Canadian, they brought all that smoke down here. I think that there's a spot for them. Smoke-free section, by the way. I think that there's a smoke-free section at the table for the Canadians. I think there's a spot at the table for everybody if we structure it the right way. But again, that is the hard part of all of it is we already have the outer border of the puzzle put together, but the hard part is all the pieces that look alike and the tough decisions we're going to have to make to put that puzzle together one day if it ever happens. And I think it's going to happen. I think it's already happening. Man, it's a deep question, man. It's a deep question.
So going off of that, so let's say we can get everybody to agree on how do you structure it? Do you structure it?
First part, you'll never get everybody to agree. I want to be very clear. Very clear. Jeff, can you please make me an unalive person derby trophy and we'll hand it out to somebody at the next Deadman Derby event?
Unalive. Dude, hey, instead of like the big 15K when it says Deadman, just do unalived person.
Absolutely. It's the new sought after politically correct trophy. You will never get everyone to agree. There will always be opposition. I would bet if you presented the perfect idea to somebody that there would be people that would oppose it. And there are also going to be people that I believe that people could ruin it and self-sabotage it. I believe that people will buck up against it if it does happen. Vendors will, promoters will, drivers will. It 100% will. But I think that if it's done with the right intentions and it's done initially all-inclusive, if you offer everyone a seat at the table and you structure it to where everyone can succeed, which is the hard part, if they get left behind, isn't that on them, right? I mean, like, I don't know. Like, if Deadman gets left behind, and if you offered me a spot to be a part of this sport, and I said no, and you go on and make this huge sport, and I have to sit back and watch you on ESPN one day because you created it, like, okay, well, that's on me. You know, that really sucks. I wish I would have said yes, but I think it's the delivery of it, right? I mean, like, we have to sit down with every single vendor that's a real player in the game that's making their own parts. That's the most important thing, in my opinion. And I'm not trying to the thing. Or if you're literally making your own stuff and you're putting the sweat equity into it, we want you. We want you. We want you in the sport. We need you in the sport. You're the people that built the sport. We don't ever want to forget that. I don't ever want to forget who got us where we are to give us the potential to even have this conversation. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, is to try to get rid of something like that. You know what I mean? Like, so I think everybody wants that. How do we make it happen? Conversations have to happen. Real conversations have to happen. Like, people have to tell us what they're willing to do, what they're absolutely not willing to do, and see if that works together. And I'm just saying that because you're talking to me about it. I'm not saying I'm the right or wrong person to lead it. I don't know what that is, man. I think I got a seat at that table. I think I'm willing to carry my weight at that table. I'm ready to row the boat if it's in the right direction for the sport. Somebody said corporate sponsors could ruin it. You're darn gone right, they could, or they could make it. I don't know the answer to that. The right corporate sponsor, yeah.
I think when it comes to the corporate sponsors and a topic like that, I believe the only way that will truly become ruined is if the greed within the community ruins that. I don't think the sponsors themselves ruin it. I think if it's set up correctly and properly, I think the only thing it really can do is push it in a positive direction. But greed is going to be the thing that's really going to be the test of time when it comes to bringing most people together and trying to form this so-called Demolition Derby coalition in a way. Because some people are going to see the amount of money that's being tossed around and thinking to themselves, if I can just get this right once, I'm set.
I think okay, so like Pepsi comes along. Well, what's Pepsi hurting us? Okay, so there's a corporate sponsor that could give us an insane amount of money to fund a possibility of a sport. Unless they're like, I have to have 3 board members on the board making decisions, and we would never let that happen because it's people in suits that aren't Derby people making stupid decisions. Who hasn't worked for a company that, you're the one in the in like the same building working your butts off with all the people that are working and the suits that have never worked a day in that office, they're making the decisions. So we would never let somebody have the decision making power to not have what's best in the Derby world on their mind. So I think it's just important that if we ever got to that point, if me, you, and I'm looking over here, Jason Boyd's the first name I saw, me, you, and Jason Boyd have this thing. We have to be able to say no to the right people and yes to the right people. There are people that can ruin the sport. There are people that can help the sport. And we just got to really, man, that $200 million number looks really shiny. But maybe the $100 million one's the one that will keep the sport alive for the next 30 years. And we're willing to lose that $100 million now because that $100 million ain't going to matter in the future. Who knows? But we got to be careful on who we select to be a part of that, right? I mean, we certainly don't want to bring somebody in that's going to basically rip apart the whole foundation and everything in the history of our sport.
So when it comes to the structure of it all, how do you see the structure taking place? Do you see it being something like something like the UFC when it comes to the bracketry of it? Do you see it having something like the format, or how do you see the structure of the actual Derby being in that in the situation where it's all in the money, where it's at the highest level it can possibly be?
The highest level of competition in the world, where you are using a machine versus another machine. That's pretty wild. That's like UFC with Amish ponies. Like, come on. Who doesn't want to see that? I think the number one thing that we have to consider when structuring this is, and it's something that I structure at my shows. I'm not afraid to put the vans prime time. I'm not afraid to pay the compacts the same as I pay the big cars. Now, yes, there's a sponsor obligation that it didn't pay the same thing this year. That's a sponsor thing. I'm sorry about that. But I'm not afraid to pay the big money to the people that pack the seats. If the Derby World tells you that they like compacts, then it's compacts. If the Derby World tells you they like mowers, then it's mowers. You got to go with what the people are telling you is popular. Like the UFC card isn't always a heavyweight championship main event. In fact, it's very rarely a heavyweight. It's usually the middleweight, featherweight, that kind of stuff. Like it's that light heavyweight championship is usually the kind of thing. The biggest thing that we have to remember is that when we start this, every single driver that stands in that driver's meeting needs to feel the same. Even if they're not. Even if they're a stock guy and maybe they don't, maybe they'll never build a full cradle car. They need to feel just as special as the most elite builder that can drop 30 grand on an engine. They need to feel that way. It's my job to make them feel just as special as the other guy. And I think they appreciate that. And I think if we can do that from the ground up, because the ground up, those little guys in the sport, man, I remember what it was like again with my first Derby. I wanted everybody to come watch me, man. I wanted grandma, grandpa, brothers, sisters, friends, stuff like that. Some of these big guys, they're coming by themselves with 3 crew. Some of them booger eaters that we make fun of, they're kind of paying our bills, man, and we need to appreciate them. There's guys that are going to come out and get blown away in one hit. They're there, but they're there 15 people strong. And guess what? They're going to come back next year and make 2 hits and then 3. And then maybe one day they're hoisting that trophy and you get to see that amazing moment where you have winners like we did in our compact class this year that looked at me and said, wow, I'm going to be able to put Christmas for my kids this year. There's not the kind of the winners you want. It's nothing for some of these guys to win 5, 10, 15 derbies in a season. But the true drama and the true passion is when that person's worked their whole entire life to get to a point, and now all of a sudden they're doing it, and man, it's just like they finally got there, man. You'll know what it's like one day when you actually can win a derby.
This guy wins the filler class, the bash, and this is how I'm getting talked
It's
to.
a full cradle class. I've always
filler class.
Bro.
Was it even heats and features, TJ?
Dude, I make more hits in one Beam MG than you do in a full season, bro. Like, don't come at me with that. Listen, if you won $10,000 at that show, what is that? $1,500 a hit? Like, man, you getting paid like Patrick Mahomes these days, man.
Well, I kind of took the, Deshaun Watson approach, get paid a bunch of money.
Whoa.
Hold on, I'm referring to the football side of it. You get paid a bunch of money, you play like 3 games, and you just walk away and you're set for life. That's kind of the approach I took. I didn't really take the other side approach of it,
Boy, you really massaged your way out of that one.
Well, sometimes after these shows,
Took the Deshaun Watson approach is what he said. Whew.
Well, the show might not last much longer. I might be getting canceled by 10 o'clock tonight. Whew. So we'll enjoy it while we're here, everybody.
You got a good thing going here, Scotty. Keep going with it, man. It's probably your best one of all time, I got to admit.
I mentioned Deshaun Watson. Of course it is.
You got anything else for the Deadman?
Are you going to bring the snake to Blizzard Bash?
If I can find a place to plug in the habitat, maybe we'll bring old Danny Green down to Blizzard Bash next year. Do you think Tim Clark would let me walk around with Danny Green on my neck?
I feel like Tim Clark's really, really, really scared of snakes, I feel like when Tim Clark sees a garden snake just slithering around at the bash, I think he like jumps and starts to run on his golf cart.
All right, so keep the snake away from Blizzard.
Fun.
That's great, man.
Well, TJ, thank you for coming on the show. We did pretty well. Thank you for all of you guys that donated to Crushing for Kids Cancer throughout the stream. You got any more words before we get off here, TJ?
Yeah, man, I'm just another idiot with a bunch of ideas and a bunch of words. Hopefully some of them hit home. So hopefully they weren't too offensive. I'm sorry if I offended you. If there's something you want to talk about more, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with anybody. I definitely think that I definitely think that there's a possibility that we can all do this together. We just got to figure out the right way. I'm on board. Whatever we can do to help as Deadman. Please be looking for a lot of great things coming out of Deadman Derby here, coming up very soon. We'd like to let you guys get through the holidays and then absolutely shove it down your throats. And that's what we plan on doing. We're going to let you get through the holidays. We're going to keep it coming. Deadman is only getting started. Year number 4, about ready to start with No Mercy, number 4. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. If you don't mind, are there any big things coming up for No Mercy that you'd like to share? Or are you guys not ready yet?
I mean, we got some cool stuff coming. And I think we're really gonna try to tap into that entertainment value this year. I got away from that at one point in time, and dude, I'm telling you, hold on. It's going to get fun. It's going to get really fun. I think that there's always a twist. There's always fire somewhere. There will be fire.
Oh, there's going to be fire now, too. Yeah, great.
Yeah, and I do respect the fact that there's a lot of people that do want to be building right now. And if I'm being completely honest with you, the biggest thing that holds me back with all of this is that we do run off of a different venue that they work at their pace. And we have to wait for that pace to meet our pace. We're ready. We're ready to commit. We're ready to sign. We're just waiting for those people to get the contract out so we can sign it, so we can start announcing it. Like, the other thing is we don't like to get too much more than 4 months ahead of time, because what you end up having is you have a lot of people that back out because they get all excited to see a shiny object, and then they decide that they're not going to run. But it's just one of those things. Like, I will tell you that we're eyeballing. We are eyeballing and have requested the last week of April, if that helps people. That is the date that we've requested. We've been very close to that every year, and we always try to stay away from Easter and things like that. But that's the date that we've requested. So we'll see how that happens. They might come back to us and say, no, you can't be there. You got to be on this date. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep you guys updated. I promise as soon as you hear it, will be right after I've heard it. We've got the show ready to rock and roll. We just need to have the date so we can start advertising.
Awesome. Cool.
But thank you, man. I had a good time. I broke a chair, so I'm going to need about $150 for this chair.
Well, I haven't made any money with this yet, so yeah. Me too. I don't even got a rolling chair. I'm in a nice little foldable, collapsible thing, Good old reliable.
I don't think wood glue is going to fix this thing.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Awesome. Well, guys, tomorrow we're Tuesday. We still have 3 days to go this week. Tomorrow we have Derby Icons. Taylor Felder Cup is coming on 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. TikTok and Facebook at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, like always. And then on Thursday, we have Sam Williams coming on. And then to follow that on Friday, to end the week, we have Tim Clark coming on. It's going to be a rough next few days, but we're going to get through it. Big things are going to happen on the internet. That's all I can say.
That's great, man. I love it. We'll be watching. Make sure you tune in to this guy they call the Iceman, and we'll see what he has in store for us. He's always got something up his sleeve. I appreciate the shout out with the Buried Alive 3 stuff there that you got on. Hopefully, you bought a Buried Alive 4 hoodie. I will say, I will say that if you did order the Buried Alive 4 stuff, I'm looking around my room right now. We've got it. It's in, so we will be shipping it out. You are guaranteed to have it well before Christmas. It should be shipping out tomorrow afternoon, which is awesome. I love being able to have stuff earlier than I expected, so that'll be coming out. If you're looking for Deadman Derby apparel, we are redesigning our whole line once again because we like to switch it up and keep it going. We'll bring back some of the awesome staples that you saw last year. Get rid of some of the stuff that didn't sell and didn't buy very good. Thank you guys for awesome Black Friday weekend. Appreciate it. You guys are awesome. The best part about Deadman Derby is the army of the dead. Our drivers and our fans are the best, man. You're part of that, and I appreciate it, my brother.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you guys for all tuning in. We shall see you tomorrow.
See you, man.
See you back. Mr. Producer, I make the best shows. Mr. Producer. Got all